I find it fun to learn new things. It's my way of keeping up with the tech world. Every night I try to find something new or exciting, a new framework, a new package, a new language, and I just experiment a little bit. It's my way of tinkering, I guess. Other people learn a new language or, learn how to fix a car. I use music and code. And so usually I don't record myself learning these new things, mostly just because it's just something that I just do in my free time. But I figured anything can make content. So why don't we learn something new together, or you just watch me learn something? And if that's entertaining for you, go ahead and subscribe and I'll probably do this more. If you've hung around tech Twitter long enough, you've probably heard of Tanner Lindsley and the TanStack. It's a whole bunch of different pieces of software. There's a router, query, table, all mostly built for React, but a lot of these things, and at least initially, last time I checked, were also built for Vue even, I think within TanStack Table, and I think TanStack Query also has, solid Vue, Svelte, and Angular ports for it. But most recently, with the addition of TanStack Router, TanStack Stack, the actual TanStack came out, which was TanStack Start. Now, the current meta frameworks I've been keeping up with, at least outside the Laravel world, have been Solid Start, as well as things like SvelteKit. Those are the two that kind of have been keeping my eye on things, as well as Astro. I think Astro is pretty great. So I wanted to say, okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the TanStack and just experiment, give my unfiltered thoughts as I'm learning this, and what does it do well? What am I missing? What are the pieces that always have me reaching back for Laravel? And usually when I'm learning something new, I do kind of compare it to something that I know really well, Laravel. But I didn't know Laravel really well forever. I've only been building in Laravel for a couple of years now, which means that I didn't know it as well as I knew Next.js or SvelteKit for a little bit. And there was parts that made me switch to Laravel, and I have videos all about that, but there's specific parts about Laravel that just clicked and made it a lot easier. So I'm curious which parts I like about this. Why don't we dive into the docs? I think, getting started here. So one of the pieces that TanStack Start is kind of based off of is the router itself. It's all TypeScript, so type safe. What you get with TanStack Start: full document SSR, streaming, server functions, bundling. A lot of what I'm seeing here are things I think are good things. Streaming, it's nice to have that kind of out of the box, but it's one of those things where anything that is not just a router with additional pieces, it's nice to have opinions built into it. So opinions on how you do server functions, opinions on what server-side rendered stuff is actually rendered, or if it's just, things that you get. Okay, even deployment pieces. So why don't we build something? Looks like it's funded from Vercel, Clerk, Convex, Sentry. Okay, your site will be 100%. Okay, when might I not want to use it? 100% static. Server rendered site was 0.js, so this is kind of going the other direction of maybe like a Remix, for example. I'm a big fan of Remix and kind of like the web standards that Remix has kind of been pushing in that sense. And a lot of things that Remix pushes is you can turn off JavaScript and it still works. Doesn't look like that is the case, at least for this. And then you're looking for a React Server Component First framework. Okay, so it's not. We'll support RC soon in our own awesome flavor. They did mention up here server functions. React server components versus RPCs. So that's more of like TRPC, if you're familiar with that. Okay, when should I use it? You need full document SSR, server functions, RPCs, full stack type safety, robust routing, and rich client-side interactivity. Let's just go ahead and get going. Okay, so if we make a new directory, and we'll make a directory of TanStack, and looks like we'll go ahead and init an npm-y. I wonder if this is just because it's in beta. Like, I'm curious of like why you're doing all this from the start. I know that some people like to present these as the options of like, hey, you have control over everything. Me personally, I like the just give me one command. Even SvelteKit's new command, like if I was to open up, I believe it's npx, yeah, sv. So SvelteKit's new command kind of has, okay, let me do that again. npx SvelteKit new. They have kind of a little bit of everything. So you can, if I was to say minimal, then you can do like, I like having all of this out of the box, similar to like the Laravel new. We'll go ahead and erase that. But this being more, hey, just initiate your own repo, initiate your own folder. It's different. It's a choice. I don't necessarily like doing that. So we create a tsconfig.json file. We'll open up our code editor for this. So in your file, tsconfig.json, paste that in, and we'll install the dependencies. So in our terminal, install that, and we need React and the Vite React plugin. So we're installing TanStack Start, React Router, and Vinxi, I think. What is Vinxi? Let's take a look. Vinxi is the full stack JavaScript SDK. I believe this is Vite's thing, right? Powered by Vite. Full stack JavaScript SDK, core concept. Okay, it's like a router initiative. Yeah, it just sets all of this up for you. So okay, it's like create React app, but for just JavaScript applications in general, I imagine. I'm not smart enough to know most of this, but I guess I understand that, or if I'm understanding it properly. Okay. Let's install React and the Vite plugin React. We'll install TypeScript and React types. Okay, let's update our package.json for the type module. So we'll go into our code, package.json, type module, and scripts. There we go. app.config.ts. Paste that in there. Okay, basic templating. 4 required files: router configuration, server entry point, client entry point, and the root of the application. If this is all the same, I'm curious of why there's just no, hey, just, you know, even if it's clone this repo and run npm install. Again, it's probably because a lot of people like to say, okay, here's exactly what's happening behind the scenes. You can customize this as need be. But let's do this. Okay, so we have routes with a root. So we'll create a new folder of routes. And we need that in the app folder. So app. And then in app, we want client and router.tsx. So client.tsx, router.tsx, and routetree.gen.ts, routetree.gen.ts, and then ssr.tsx. We'll rename this. Okay, and then we have the underscore root.tsx in this root file. Perfect. Router configuration, router.tsx. So we're creating a router. This isn't included. I wonder. Okay, yeah, not file expected to have at this point. It'll be generated when you run TanStack Start. Okay. Server entry point. Okay, yeah, so we're creating the TanStack router and we're just basically registering it. This is ssr.tsx. This just creates the, or imports everything for server-side rendering, which is also using Vinxi type server. Client entry points. This is client.tsx. This is basically what's rendering the pages, which I assume would be in the routes folder. And yeah, we're importing the router from the, okay. I don't know where the routes folder's coming in. Maybe it's just the what's expected. Router.tsx. Route tree. Maybe that's what's just, maybe that would be what is generated. And then the root.tsx, and this is what we're pasting in. Meta tags here. We have our root component, which is the outlet, which I assume is probably going to be page-based. in the sense that if I was to create a about.tsx folder, I'm just going to keep going through everything so I don't jump ahead. Writing your first route, index.tsx. So let's go ahead and copy this root index.tsx. Oh, why did I do that? Paste that in. Argument of type strings, not silent. Okay, so we're getting some errors already. It's probably because we haven't actually run npm run dev. Let's run this first, and then I'll take a look at what's actually happening in here. So in our terminal, npm run dev. Did I not install something? Invalid package.json. Let's see. There we go. npm run dev. Okay, so that's the, Vinxi is like the starter for servers. So it's Vite for servers, I imagine. Okay, so we should be able to visit here and add 1 to 0. Okay, neat little button. We'll zoom in so you all can see that. And let's see. Okay, so we have account.txt. I assume that is what is neat about this. It's writing to the actual file itself. Yeah, we have the file path. Okay, I love stuff like this. There's a reason why that I like Livewire so much, because stuff like this makes sense to me. I want my routes here. I don't want to create a new API folder and create a new Git route on a index.tsx file in that API folder. I just want the server methods I want to call. I want routes to them right here. I would imagine. I wonder how you could do this as an API. Like if you were calling this from HTTP or Postman or whatever have you. If you could run this update count and how that works, I assume like what's happening here. If I was to inspect, we have this button, type of button. Okay, what's actually happening? So yeah, if we take a look at the network, add 1. Okay, yeah, we're running a full server request. And then it looks like it's getting back. So no, it's not HTML over wires, it's not JSON, but we are getting this request URL, server function ID. So we're just passing that into the URL parameter and then passing this back. Okay, it makes sense. So let's see, before I even continue to look at this code, we have let's continue to look at this code, I should say. We have the create file route. So I wonder, does name matter? So if I was to say this is the counter, save argument type of counter and just delete it. Counter? That's interesting. Maybe. So if I was, let's say, routes, a new file, counter.tsx. Ooh. How is it doing that? Is it route tree? Interesting. That's really neat. I do like that. I like niceties like that. Interesting. So I it's not this that's generating the code, but I would just create a new file and it automatically, scaffolded this out. In Laravel world, we would call these stubs. I mean, that's not just Laravel world, but you usually would run an artisan command, in this case, a CLI command, and being able to just create a new file. Maybe it's just the actual, because it's not this file that's doing that. Create/update routes. Populate the file route, because yeah, this is just generating all the information that we need. So as soon as you input something into the route page, it's going to generate this actual file itself, in the sense that it looks like it needs the path to that file. So it is still file based. Okay. I like it. So yeah, counter.tsx, and then we have hello counter. Okay, component, we're an index. We have the router. And I would imagine, okay, router.invalidate. That's probably like how it's refreshing the page, because if I was to remove this, let's just say console.log updated. Allows us to remove that, to go back. Yeah, and then, so nothing changed. I have to refresh, and then we see it. Yeah, so that invalidate is just refreshing the page. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I wonder what is with the router. So like a push or navigate. Okay, router navigate to, let's say, counter. I do always like, I do like named, okay, argument type string. Type string is not assignable to type. Make optional search params. Maybe navigate is not what I'm thinking of. Let's see. No. Did I save it? Huh. Maybe because that's having the error, it doesn't actually save. Router dot, let's see, clear cache, hydrate, history, is server load? Interesting. Router dot update. Try that. New options, router construction options. Okay, so it's like redirect. Router dot, so invalidate might not even be like the actual loader itself. I always put the semicolon because of PHP. Yeah, so router is using the actual router, and that's just this here. Okay, but in the index, we're reading the count. So these are all, this is just a normal function to read the file itself, but then in order to get the count, it's actually creating a server function. So if I was to create a new server function, let's say maybe like update, or maybe like, let's say duplicate count. We'll take the count and then add it to count. And then, so if we had a second button, I assume this has to be a fragment because of JSX. But if we were to take a second button and we were saying that this is going to duplicate count, and we don't need a parameter, duplicate count, 27. That's why, because I didn't await it. There we go. That should work. Okay, 4. I'm really just adding them together. And if let's do a reset. So if we do like a const reset count, and then we'll just post that to write the file path of 0. Perfect. And then we just have a new button. That's a button of type button on click reset count. There we go. Okay, maybe we'll change this to, this will just be add 1 to the number. Then down here, we'll just have the state. It's really cool that we're writing to a file throughout all this. And I think that's the benefit of, I would imagine, I don't need that anymore. I would imagine that's the benefit of like these create server functions. I think all this resonates with me a lot, because if I'm going to be doing anything like this in React, there's a reason why I like the DX of Livewire, for example, of being able to have these these functions. It looks like you can have multiple. The one that is interesting was in solid start. I believe you can only have one server function like this per route, because it's like the post to that route. And so being able to have named functions like this is really interesting to me. The loader. Okay, so this is saying when we load the page, we're just going to get the count. That's why it's kind of revaluing this page. Same thing with like counter. Okay, so components. So I guess we can have a loader for each one. Let's go back to take a look. Okay, let's see hosting. Yeah, Vercel, Cloudflare pages. So data loading, is this what I'm looking at? Yeah, loader. So you can have a specific function that you're loading a parameter. And this is probably, yeah, where you're going to be passing in path names, I would imagine. So we can have deferred data loading, which is nice. So in the loader, it can have an async function to defer that loading. External data loading, so like within TanStack query, yeah, you can posts cache await fetch posts. Okay, very nice. Okay, so here's API routes, and so that would just be routes/API. So similar thing that you would probably do within Next.js, but this is just for API, not necessarily for your actual file. So you have your server functions. You can call server functions from anywhere. Authentication. Okay, so yeah, not much here. I get this is also like in very early stages of this particular framework in that sense. Databases, same thing. I have not checked out Convex, so that's something that I've been wanting to check out. Maybe I can check that out. So let's do for routing in the guide. You have navigation. So how do you do, is it just to, from, and to? Is that it? Is it router.from? Is that what it is? Because I was curious of like how you were doing that here. So if it was like an h equals router.to. Is it not to? Is it just to? Two options. So how would you do that? Is a link anywhere in actual A tag, the link options interface extends navigate options will be available. Okay. So you do have a link component to /counter be up and running. Yep. Okay, so that's very nice. And I would imagine like if we want to go in our app, we'll just create like a components file and we'll create a new file. It's just like nav.tsx and we'll like export default nav. We'll have these as links. Same thing for the counter. Okay, so then in the, I wonder if you would do that in root. Let's see if there's like a layout, navigation. So if we had layout, create route. So you can put component. Is that where you put layout as well? Let's see, like layout, wrap child, so pathless routes, layout component, pathless group directories. I'm so confused with that. A little bit. /a would be layout A. Which component will be rendered based on the URL? I'll do a layout.index.tsx. What I'll do? I'm so confused there. How would you do a layout? I'm probably not getting this at all. I don't really need pathless. I just want a layout. Outlets. So maybe it's just called nested. Route trees and nesting. Okay. Valid route tree. So we have the layout A. Virtual file routes and code-based routes. File-based, so you have routes, layout.tsx. Okay. Is that what I'm doing wrong? It's just one underscore. Let's delete it. Layout.tsx. Oh well, we'll move on from that. I guess the only other question I have is how to do, so it looks like in path params, you would use the $ prefix, so post ID, and then we would fetch those in the loader. Let's just do this, the posts.postID. So it would be like, let's just go ahead and delete the layout. So it would be posts, and then like post.postid.tsx. That'll be it. Post.postid. Okay. So I probably could do this, but I probably would just need to do a new file of post.postid.tsx, like that. Not assignable. What am I doing wrong with this? So npm run dev again, post/3. Fetch post is not defined, so that's probably just in my code itself. Yeah. So we'll just return this. We have the component, and here we'll have the component of hello, you are at post ID, where this could be like, you probably don't even need a loader then. You could just do this, params, post ID, like that. Okay, post/post ID. Path params can be used by child routes. Maybe I do need to have like a posts folder that I can drop this in. Let's see. Then I can refresh. Post 3. See, that one's not found. If I direct it there, delete this. Post. And we see that, but not the actual ID. I don't get an error anymore though. Being able to have the data loading both in the like loader of the actual component as well as the kind of server component or server function pieces is really interesting to me. The preloading piece, okay, so you can say, yeah, being able to have like the deferred data loading and also the preloading is really interesting. I like that. Overall, yeah, I really like what TanStack Start is bringing to the table. Of course, yeah, it's still in alpha. It's still new. I don't quite understand everything and maybe I'm doing something wrong. Probably. There's a great chance that I'm doing something wrong for some of that stuff. Routing is tough and it takes me a long time to figure out something. So this was just a quick look at me literally the first time I've ever seen a lot of this stuff and getting it up and running. But I love a lot of like the DX that have been set up, and it's something I'm going to keep my eye on because, especially because of those server component pieces in the sense that you can just create a new function and you can do whatever you want within that function without having to create a new API route. I think that is the future of DX when it comes to React. It's one of the reasons why I love Livewire. It's one of the reasons why I think other things like that are moving to a similar style where you just have like React server components. You have that piece in your code. Hono.js does it. SvelteKit is starting to do it. It's a little bit different because they still have their API routes, but I like TanStack Start. I'll be interested to see how it goes, and hopefully you learn something new along with me. And it's been fun to just be a bystander on the wall, but I'm gonna keep learning. I'm gonna keep diving in, so you keep creating.